Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1606B, and today's date is July 2nd, 2018, and the title of the episode is, There is a Coordinated Effort to Create Hysteria Designed to Instill Fear and Change the Narrative. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, we know the deep state, they've been pushing their agenda with immigration. And they're trying to stir emotions. They're trying to push this as hard as they possibly can. And Attorney General Jeff Sessions, he is drafting a regulation that will narrow the asylum rules and likely deter many people from taking the costly and risky step of migrating towards the United States. Now, the draft of the regulation, which could be enacted by the end of the year, is as follows. Under the plan, people will be barred from getting asylum if they came to the U.S. between ports of entry and were prosecuted for illegal entry. It would also add presumptions that would make it extremely difficult for Central Americans to qualify for asylum and codify in even more restrictive form an opinion written by Sessions in June that attempted to restrict asylum for victims of domestic and gang violence. But as it exists now, the proposal is sweeping and thorough revamp of asylum, tightening the screws throughout the asylum process. So the rewrite might help deter and prevent most migrants from exploiting the 1997 Flores settlement and other catch-and-release loopholes, which are now being used by huge numbers of Central Americans to move into the United States. Sessions' new regulation would not change the federal asylum law, but would merely help with the agency's interpretation of the law. He has already used his authority to change many aspects of the asylum process as he tries to reduce the backlog of 600,000 asylum cases. So it looks like he's trying to do something to help the situation, and of course Congress needs to do something. And remember, going back to Obama, we know back then he created a memorandum allowing these illegals to come in, putting them on buses, bringing them over to the sanctuary cities, giving money to the sanctuary cities, and most of these children were not children. They were teenagers. They were even older than that, 19, 20 years old, and these individuals came up because he was down in Central America, South America, talking to all the leaders down there, saying, send the people up this way. And there were many different agendas associated with this. One, Obamacare. Two, they were hoping to implement TPP, which means all the countries were going to be on a level playing field on how much pay each person was going to receive. And the American worker, well, they were going to ask for too much, so these individuals had to take their spot. They also were used for voting to get these individuals to vote for a certain candidate. And there were many other agendas associated with this. And another one was to blend all the countries into one, just like they were trying to do in Europe right now. So they were trying to do it here in the United States, trying to do it in Europe. And their whole agenda was to have a one world government where everyone was the same, no one had a separate identity, and they were hoping that this would be a lot easier to control with their plans, but their plans are backfiring. It doesn't mean they haven't given up, because they keep pushing towards their goals. And talking about refugees, illegals, blending everyone together, Soros, he is meeting with the new socialist president of Spain, the prime minister of Spain, and they're talking about open borders. They're talking about bringing more migrants up to the area of Spain and having them go throughout Europe. And the new prime minister pledged to take down the barbed wire fences that protect Spain's two new North African enclaves. And we see that Soros, he's not giving up. He knows he can't get the refugees from the Middle East anymore. He's still trying, but most of the refugees are returning back home, especially in Syria. And he realizes that he needs to get more refugees. So he's going to Africa right now. And he wants the EU to flip the bill to have all these individuals move up into Europe. And he's not giving up on the goal, because they think this whole thing right now is just a blip on their radar. And once Trump is out of office and they have their person in power, everything's back on schedule. They'll reintroduce TPP, they'll put everything back into place, and they'll start the propaganda full force, and they'll pretend it didn't even happen. And we'll be back to where we were. And this is their plan from the beginning, because they've worked very hard and long for a very long time to get this plan where it is today. And they're not just going to sit by and wait for someone to destroy it. So they're going to fight until the very end. They're going to lie to the very end. They're going to reject everything to the very end. They're never going to say, we give. They don't do that. And the only way to get rid of them is to arrest them, or they commit suicide, either one. We see that the USS Truman is deployed to the Atlantic, and of course the corporate media is going to turn this around, because as we know, this is about an ongoing rotation of U.S. forces supporting maritime security operations in international waters, but they're going to say that the USS Harry S. Truman is headed into this area to fight Russian aggression. And remember, the summit with Trump and Putin, that is coming up, and they're going to try to push Russian aggression like we've never seen before. As we approach the summit date, we're going to see a lot more of these stories in the corporate media. We see Iran's Rouhani. He's leaving for Switzerland and Austria to discuss the nuclear deal. And he's trying to get these countries together on this to try to support the nuclear deal. And again, if they're not going to support this and pay Iran, they're going to be completely out. It seems that we have news of the Obama administration, who granted citizenship to 2,500 Iranians, including family members of government officials, while negotiating the Iran nuclear deal. And this is coming from a senior cleric and member of parliament in Iran. And he claimed it was done as a favor to senior Iranian officials linked to Hassan Rouhani, and he alleged the move sparked a competition among Iranian officials over whose children would benefit from the scheme. So we definitely see different information coming out about what has really happened with this Iranian deal. And we know there's a lot of funds that were being transferred over to Iran and then over into Syria to buy the uranium from Russia to create nuclear weapons. And we see that this right now is falling apart on them. And as more information comes out, we're going to see more of what we never even knew. And it's going to be shocking. We're seeing that the Syrian government and the Kurdish YPG, they are now talking peace. And they have a preliminary agreement right now, which has been made between the two groups. And the preliminary agreement comes after the government met with Kurdish delegates in both Damascus and the Kamishli city. The source continued that the government is attempting to convince the Kurdish Democratic Federation to agree to the following terms: join forces with the government across the country, hand over the Tal Khojar and Salmalka border crossings into Iraq, hand over the Ras Al Ain border crossing in Turkey. The YPG is asking in return that the government make the Kurdish language a part of the Syrian educational system, count the period the YPG fighters served as service in the Syrian armed forces, and give Kurdish official a permanency in the Syrian oil ministry. Now, again, they're talking peace, and it doesn't look like the Kurds want a separate part of Syria anymore. It looks like they want to have a relationship with the Syrian government and be one as a country. So we can see that whole plan of separating Syria. It doesn't look like it's happening. We also see Bolton. He has shifted his tone, where he used to say Assad must go, Assad must go. Now he's saying Assad can stay, Iran must leave Syria. Now, of course, Iran is out there, and they're saying we only have advisors in Syria. We don't have armed forces, but the U.S., Israel, and many others are saying we need Iran out of Syria. And I think what they're trying to do is they want Iran out of this area. And if Iran does leave, Israel has already stated they have no problem with Assad coming to the southern area. Also, if Iran does leave Syria, I believe the U.S. would have no problem removing the troops from Syria. I think this is a sticking point right now. And I think Russia, since Putin came out already and said, listen, all foreign forces, and he's including Iran in this, should leave Syria. Russia would stay. I think this was the beginning stages of all this. And I think the U.S., the Trump administration, has sent a signal to Putin where they halted all aid to Syrian rebels in the south. This is a signal to Putin before the summit to say, yes, we want this to end. We want the troops to come home. And I think this is the beginning stages. And I think once we get to the summit, once we get Trump together with Putin, I think a lot is going to change right now. And I think at that point, we're going to see something completely different happening out in Syria. Just like in North Korea, when everyone thought we were going to war and Kim Jong-un was going to be, firing their nuclear weapons over to the U.S., all of a sudden we had peace. Now, we do hear the corporate media out there using a lot of propaganda about North Korea and how they have these secret sites and stuff like that, but we're going to be talking about that in a little bit with Q and his posts. But before that, let's talk about what the FBI did. They announced that they arrested an individual that was allegedly helping to plan a terrorist attack in downtown Cleveland on the 4th of July. And we know that the FBI usually has these patsies. They're controlled by the intelligence agencies. And this individual, the man was 48 years old, Demetrius Pitts, also known as Abdur Rahim Rafiq. He was arrested on Sunday and faces charges of providing a foreign terrorist group with financial support. And if he's convicted, he faces around 20 years. And he's been arrested before. The FBI knows about him. Law enforcement knows about him. And it's the same exact people that we see over and over. And once again, we understand that these individuals are put into place to create these false flags, to make it seem like terrorists are coming for us here in the U.S. And what better way but to have this individual stage something? Of course, it's not just him. There are handlers behind him on the 4th of July, Independence Day. So we can see that this was completely set up. And this doesn't mean that something else might not occur. But at this point, this has been stopped. Let's get into the new Q posts. Post 1658, July 1st. Q put up a picture of an Anon who basically is tracking, and there's many different individuals. I'm not going to name them all. If you want to see them, you can come to the X22 report. You can see this, or on YouTube, you'll see it on your screen. But he put together these individuals put together this whole grid of all the sealed indictments. And Q went on to say, good tracking. Ask yourself, is this normal? This is bigger than people can possibly imagine. Nothing being done? ? Q. And when you look at this, the total number of indictments, and this goes state to state to state with all the different dates of how many indictments there were. And there's a total of 40,483 indictments since October 30th, 2017 to June 30th, 2018. That's 5,060 per month on average. So people are saying, well, is this normal? Is this not normal? Well, what's normal? Well, if we go back in time, in 2006, in the whole entire year of 2006, there was 1,077. And this is according to a 2009 report. And these are new sealed court proceedings filed in U.S. federal district criminal courts. So there's quite a bit of them here. Let's move on to post 1659. Q says, ask yourself, who is filing the indictments? It would take a very large team to work this quickly. Who has that kind of manpower? 470 then leaves a link to Breitbart, Big Government, Turley Sessions using Utah federal prosecutors, much better for Trump than second special counsel. And we know this individual is Huber. So I.G. Horowitz and Huber, they are doing this. Post 1660. Q says, ask yourself, does Huber have the ability to file across all 50 states? Is any of this normal? Think sealed indictments. Think resignations of CEOs. Think resignations of senators. Think resignations of Congress. Think termination of senior FBI. Think termination of senior Department of Justice. Media blackout. Midterms punt. All or nothing race. Would a second special counsel take years to complete? Would a second special counsel be based in corrupt D.C.? Would the grand jury be members of the D.C. community? What percentage of D.C. voted for Hillary Rodham Clinton? How large is Mueller's team? 2025? Think 470. The more you know. Q. And yes, Huber has a level of authority rarely seen, and it has sent the rats scurrying for the hills. And I just want everyone to understand what the sealed indictments are. All grand jury proceedings are required by law to be kept secret. The investigation takes place in a closed room, led by a prosecutor with no judge. The person accused of a crime has no right to present his case. In most cases, is not advised the hearing has taken place. Is it against the law for any witness or member of the jury to disclose any portion of the grand jury proceedings, including their own testimony? While a court reporter transcribes the grand jury proceedings, the resulting record is sealed until such time as the court unseals it. In many cases, a secret indictment made by the grand jury, formally charging the accused of a crime, is kept sealed until the accused has been arrested, notified of the charges, or released from jail pending trial. A secret indictment is also referred to as a sealed indictment or a silent indictment. There are two primary reasons for such secrecy. One, to encourage witnesses to testify and provide evidence openly without fear of retaliation. Number two, to reduce the risk of the accused taking flight or attempting to influence the jurors. In addition, keeping grand jury investigations secret helps ensure an accused person who is ultimately cleared of criminal charges is not subject to public censure or scorn. And we see right now that that's what a secret indictment is, and that's why they're being kept a secret, because most of these individuals don't even realize that they have a sealed indictment against them because they don't want them to run and hide. So what percentage of D.C. voted for Hillary Rodham Clinton? Well, Hillary Clinton got 90.9%, 282,000. The nation's capital has awarded in 3 electoral votes to the Democratic candidate in every presidential elections since it gained the right to vote for president in 1961. Obama won District of Columbia in 2012 by 83.6% percentage points. And Annan puts it this way: Huber can impanel in any state. Sealed indictments imply grand jury already impaneled. Dems must win House in November or no more strongholds to hamstring investigative tools. Second special counsel will start from scratch and will impanel grand jury in D.C. Grand jury must draw members from local community. Corruption votes for itself. D.C. unified. 450 plus on Huber's team. Stages set, jury set, location set, indictments. Who is the first domino? Post 1661. And Annan wrote, looking at the numbers, it doesn't seem to be slowing down or wrapping up either. Q wrote, think stages. What role can military intel play? What role can NSA play? Bang. Q. Post 1662. Put up a story from Washington Times about U.S. really did have a Manchurian candidate in the White House. I'm going to read a little portion of this. In the short year and a half that President Trump has been in office, he has put in place policy that has mitigated the damage that Obama inflicted on our national security and on our allies. The speed with which Trump has been able to turn things around points to the diabolical depths the Obama administration went in order to undermine our national strength and way of life. All Trump had to do was stop doing things that hurt America. America could then take care of itself. The results are plain as day. However, it will take decades for the Obama damage to be completely undone. The deviousness of the Obama sedition runs deep. Think about it for a moment. If you wanted peace in the Middle East, why would you throw away the trillions of dollars spent, as well as the lives of thousands of American souls, by irresponsibly pulling out all American troops from Iraq? No matter your thoughts on starting the war, pulling out was an irresponsible thing to do. We still have troops in Germany, Korea, Japan, and many other areas. So why? For stability, that's why. As Colin Powell says, We broke it. Now we own it. It was a given that instability would follow the forced withdrawal. When you combine this act with the reality that Obama never really did try to defeat the Islamic State, what conclusion can you come up with? Trump defeated them in a few months. Well, he also had the help of Russia, which Russia really started destroying the Islamic State way before Trump. But then once Trump got into office, he maneuvered the military to allow them to go after the Islamic State. Remember, before Trump was in there, Obama was calling out the targets, not the military. The conclusion is obvious. Obama really didn't want to destroy them. Now, we discussed that many, many times before. Why did Obama and Hillary take down Gaddafi, who had already given up his nuclear weapons? Was it to destabilize Libya, where the Islamic State could gain another foothold? Why did Obama help install the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt? What was the agenda behind the so-called Arab Spring? Now, this article's pretty much laying it all out. What we've been talking about since the beginning. Post 1663. Thank you, United States Secret Service. And he put up an article from The Blaze. Stunning revelation buried deep in IG report blows hole in Lynch Clinton tarmac meeting narrative. So let's look at this. Bill Clinton lied to the American people, the whole nation, when he said his tarmac meeting with then Attorney General Loretta Lynch was an innocent affair during which they spoke about their grandchildren. Well, it looks like in the IG report, there's a stunning revelation, which is buried on page 203 of the Inspector General's report, and suggests that the controversial June 2016 tarmac meeting between then Attorney General Loretta Lynch and former President Bill Clinton was not spontaneous and innocent, but actually coordinated and illegal. The Inspector General's revelation blows a hole in the narrative Lynch and Bill Clinton have carefully maintained for 2 years. Lynch claimed the social meeting was spontaneous and the two discussed grandchildren. However, according to the report, she was deeply uncomfortable with the meeting and understood the serious consequences if the public ever found out. The meeting was extremely controversial at the time because it came just days before the FBI Director James Comey announced the FBI would not recommend criminal charges against Hillary Clinton for using a private email server while Secretary of State. What does Horowitz's report say? The report states that the Department of Justice of Public Affairs supervisor traveling with Lynch told internal Department of Justice investigators that Clinton's Secret Service detail contacted Lynch's security detail ahead of time to arrange the meeting. Bill Clinton's plane was parked next to Lynch's, the report revealed, or about just 20 to 30 yards away. Clinton told investigators he only learned the plane next to his was Lynch's after being briefed by his staff. He claimed he then debated whether or not he should say hello and shake hands with the Attorney General. Page 203 of the report states, the OPA supervisor said that he later learned that former President Clinton's Secret Service detail had contacted Lynch's FBI security detail and let them know that the former president wanted to meet with Lynch. Although Lynch's staff was supposed to receive notice of such requests, witnesses told us that they were not informed of the request from former President Clinton. In addition, Lynch revealed to the Department of Justice investigators she was not social with the Clintons and had never met with either one of them prior to the tarmac meeting. The report goes on to detail that Lynch's staff, who were waiting outside the plane in a staff van, felt blindsided and shocked Lynch would meet with the former president. Finally, it was Lynch's senior counselor who broke up the meeting when she realized it would become extremely problematic if the media learned Lynch had just met with the husband of a subject in a major investigation. The senior counselor said she could not recall what she heard when she entered the plane, but said Lynch appeared uncomfortable and wanted the meeting to be done. According to the report, the meeting between Lynch and Clinton lasted about 20 minutes, and there was a camera outside on the tarmac, a security camera, that caught all of this. Post 1664. Q, this is July 1st, Q. There will be no civil war. Coordinated mainstream media hysteria designed to instill fear, change narrative. North Korea is not advancing their weapons program. And he repeats, Q repeats, I should say, coordinated mainstream media hysteria designed to instill fear, change narrative. Fake news Q. Basically, fear-mongering. And this is what they're going to do from this point on. They're trying to change and control the narrative. And Glenn Greenwald had some choice words about the source of this info. And we talked about this yesterday, that this was an anonymous source. So Glenn Greenwald found out who it was. It's an anonymous CIA official that leaked it to NBC through a stenographer notorious for disseminating CIA messaging that North Korea is increasing its nuclear activity. Then the story went viral. Guess what? It's all fake. They made it up. And a lot of this also comes out of the UK. So this is how they push propaganda, and they keep saying anonymous sources because they really don't have a source. It's someone creating a story out of thin air and pushing it out there. Just like all the other stories about the Islamic State's coming to get us. Iraq has, weapons of mass destruction, and they do this over and over and over. So we see that it was the intelligence agencies, not really surprising. Post 1665, Q put up a picture by Ben Garrison, and it's a house divided. And Q says, "Thank you, Ben. We rather enjoyed this one. Where we go one, we go all." And it's all about Q. It's all about the Democrats, the Republicans, how the whole thing's divided, and a lot of staircases. You can see the picture on the X22 report. Just click on the title of the report. It will bring you there. If you're on YouTube, you're seeing the picture right now. And once again, we see that Ben Garrison, he is on the Q train. He actually tweeted, "Where we go one, we go all." So we see right now we're going to be seeing a lot of fake news to shift the narrative over to the deep state. It's not going to work. There's a huge number of sealed indictments all being prepared. They're working very, very quickly. And a lot of these people don't even realize that they're under investigation. And it's going to hit them hard and fast. And it's just a matter of time. And I think the clock's ticking down. And we know that Q has been telling us July, which is this month, we're going to see something happen with the IG report. And again, I believe Trump is waiting for Congress to ask him to declassify the report. I don't think he wants to come out and say, "Hey, I'm just going to declassify it." He wants to be asked. So it looks like he's not initiating this. And I think once that is done, no matter how it's done, I think we're going to hear so many different things. But at that point, I think the corporate media right now, they're going to keep something else in the news cycle, make something else up to cover up that entire story because they don't want that story out there. And we might even see events. We might even see some other emotional story, some other narrative about North Korea or Russian aggression, or maybe other events that are happening here in the United States. They used immigration right now to keep that in the news cycle, get people all, hot and bothered with that. And I believe they're going to try something else once this report is declassified, and especially when the indictments start, coming out and people are being arrested and things like that. I think they're not even going to know what to do at that point. And this is why Q has been saying that people are going to have a problem with this. They're going to reject it. People are going to be angry. And I think we're almost there. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.